Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. So, for the last year, I talked about the hate speech rule. I said, even before they even thought about it, that they could do this kind of thing to try and suppress freedom of speech and stuff like that. And obviously, in democracy, that's the most important right. Your freedom of expression, to talk, basically, to have an opinion. That's, adamant in democracy. That's the first thing that should always be protected, regardless of whatever you do. So, and again, we all know if they do this, if they bring in the hate speech law, it'd be just a downhill slope, and then you won't be able to speak, you won't be able to protest. At the moment, it's going that way in this country, unfortunately. But it has been talked about in the Shannon there the other day. I'm sure people have seen it on Twitter. But one senator, I've said this again and again and again. They use the word all over again, the greater good for the greater good. But when you ask them what's the greater good, they don't have an explanation what's the greater good. They never explain what that means. So, and that's basically what they're going to put probably into the legislation for the greater good. But what's the greater good? If you disagree with the government, is it the greater good when they throw you in prison for 5 or 6 years? Is that the greater good for society if you disagree with them on a policy? That they just lift you in off the street in the middle of the night and throw you into a cell for 5 or 6 years just to shut you up? Is that the greater good? Just to shut people up, basically, when you disagree with the government. You can't disagree with Leo and all that. That's a disgrace if you do that. That's the way the government are going nowadays. But not even that. I just want the sideline for a second. There was a survey done, a poll kind of, the government do before they bring in legislation and stuff, just to get public opinion on stuff and different legislation and stuff like that. On the hate speech legislation particularly, many people responded back to the government, give their opinion in. 75 or 73% were only against it, didn't even want to hear about it. That they said it shouldn't happen, it's a democracy, we shouldn't have it. And it was asked by Ben Scallon of Griff Media, which I just want to say Griff Media is doing great work. Only for Griff Media now, I don't know what we would do without them. And many even only journalists that they're taking it upon themselves to do what the mainstream media are not doing. The mainstream media will cover this, unfortunately. They have their head in the sand, and they're not. OT and the rest, they have their head in the sand, and should look at a few million a year from the government to shut them up very quickly too if they're going to cover it. But yeah, just want to say that too. But it was asked by Ben Scanlon of Griff Media to Leo Varadkar, why did they do a survey if they weren't going to listen to it? Imagine doing a survey and you're not going to listen to it. Even though 75%, or say 73%, it doesn't really matter, it's only 2% off. It's kind of in the same region, right? Are not in favour of it. You think you would say many people in this country are not too happy with it. I know that doesn't represent the whole country, right? I understand that. But they could be like, yeah, you know, the vast majority of Irish people don't want it, and they're just like, no, we're not going to listen to them. No, democracy, what's that? Engaging with the public, things that it's a tower we live in. They always say to us when they call about the far right and stuff like that, and they always say the threat to democracy and stuff like that, and then straight away, the next day they're like, we're not going to listen to the people. We're just going to do the opposite. We're not going to listen to you. You're just the peasants. You're just the people who pay the taxes for us to go on our private jets and stuff like that. So, no, I just wanted to bring that up too. But yeah. So, I just play this about Pauline Wiley in the Shannon. Now, and she is a senator, just to say. Yeah. This is a senator in our parliament, 100 years after our independence. I don't know what they would take. Well, to be totally honest, we have a Taoiseach who was the Taoiseach, who said we don't want a backwards idea of sovereignty. I don't know what De Valero or Michael Collins or anybody who was in the first Dáil and things like that would want to hear about sovereignty, backwards idea of sovereignty. I don't know. And again, that just basically tells you all you need to know about the government. They don't care. They don't care. They want to sell us out. That's basically it.
When you think about it,
Listen to this now.
all law, all legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom.
But we kind of know that, yeah, because let's be fair, they're kind of going to do this, and then the next thing be like, oh, you can't protest unless we say so, unless it's government approved, the commissioner approved of everything. You cannot protest unless the government says you can, basically. And that's during COVID too, like that. Unless the government allowed you to unless it was for their narrative, if it was against the government to protest during the lockdowns and stuff like that, the girls would hit you with batons and stuff like that. They'd kick you off the street. But if it was for a person in America, of course, you could fly the streets all day, every day, and there'll be no marks passed and things like that. Over it's just supporting the government, pro lockdown protests or whatever, the government or climate protest or whatever, the government we are happy doing. The guards wouldn't even go near them. The guards wouldn't even turn up to the protest. But yeah, I just thought to interrupt. Sorry. Falcon, will you play? Excuse me.
But we're doing it for the common good. You will see throughout our constitution, yes, you have rights, but they are restricted for the common good. Everything needs to be balanced. And
But just to stop with the constitution is very clear. Like now, at the moment, what they're trying to do in the last few years, they're trying to make it wishy-washy. That it's very vague. Every legislation is so vague. Like even the lockdown legislation and stuff like that, they were very vague. It wasn't straightforward. And in the Constitution of Ireland, it basically just says it straight up that your freedom of speech and your freedom of expression, your freedom to protest, as long as obviously you're not kicking people, beating people up during a protest, or you're threatening violence. Say for example, if I say now, we should go out and burn the whole country or something like that, that's obviously inciting to violence. Obviously that's against the law. Threatening somebody, directly threatening somebody, that's obviously against the law. But in the Constitution, it basically says you have your freedom of speech, and there's nothing anybody can really do to stop you. That's basically what it says in the Irish Constitution. That above all, you're a citizen of the country. You have entitlement to speak. You have entitlement to vote. You have entitlement to freedom of protest. To your heart's content. Basically, that's the Constitution. But now they kind of want to say for the greater good. It's only when we decide what's the good. You see where that's going, and that's the slippery slope. Sorry, I keep having to interrupt them. Well, I don't want to listen to them, but I suppose it's better to interrupt these people.
Other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe, insecure, and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace. Then I believe that it is our job as legislators to restrict those freedoms for the common good.
But
when you think about it,
this is the thing. I would love any senator or any TD to try and explain to me, because I've asked once or twice TDs and senators, what's the common good? And basically they flutter themselves and they kind of like, and they wouldn't answer it. They say, it's just for the best interest of the nation. That's what one TD said. But explain, try and go into detail on it. They won't. They just basically would say that common good is for the common good. But who's the common good? But who helps the common good? Is it for the government that's the common good? Because to be totally honest, we heard this many times during the lockdown and stuff. It's for the common good, And for fucking who is the common good, to be totally honest? That's what you have to ask yourself. Because it isn't for the only Irish Joe, let's be fair. Nothing's ever for the only Irish Joe. They don't like the only Irish Joe. But yeah, we just have to say it straight. It should not go ahead, the hate speech bill. It should not be even considered to be passed. If it's going to be anyway put forward to the public, it should be put forward in a vote next year. So members of the public can vote. That's the way I would consider it. And then at least then we could say it's not the TDs. Because again, at the end of the day, the TDs are not listening to the only Joe who has concerns about this. The senators, the members of the local authorities and stuff are not listening. They're just ignoring the public. Anybody has a different opinion, no. If it's NGOs and the mainstream media, they listen to them to their heart's content. But they won't listen to only people. Because again, I'm sure people can see where I'm coming from. If we give them an inch, they take a mile. That's as simple as that. It's the same what happened in Nazi Germany. It's the same what happened in the Soviet Union. We see how dictatorships start. We see the slippery slope it starts on. And we have to put the brakes on it before it gets too far. It's getting too far as we speak. It's getting there. We're not extreme there. We're not there yet. But give it another 10 to 20 years. There'll be no protest and there'll be no things. Because we have to admit it. It's the way it's going. Because again, the way they're saying, if you offend anybody, if you have a different opinion, say you are against, I don't know, a house being built in front of a lake, right, and you can't see the view of the lake, right? And if somebody's offended by that, and beside you, they could say that's hate. That's a hatred protest. Get the hate speech laws and throw them in prison, and they say it's an illegal protesting. Again, there's loads of ways this can be abused. There's 110 billion ways it can be abused. So, no is no. It's simple as that. Thank you.